Yes, now they work. Thank you so much for sticking around after this. I just think it's an incredible film. It is a visionary film. I hope to hell you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. So please, welcome Richard Kelly back to the stage. All right. So you hadn't seen that in quite some time in the theater.
Probably many years, maybe, God, a long time, and especially in the theater, yeah. It's been maybe even since it was released.
Wow.
Yeah, or soon after.
So I want to ask the question that I'm sure is on everybody's mind right now after seeing that is, what is the origin of the catchphrase, "I'm a pimp and pimps don't commit suicide"?
You know, I think it came organically from the dialogue in the Mega Zeppelin scene, and then I realized it had this deeper meaning, really with respect to a very devastating and serious issue, which is like the suicide rate of veterans, which is, you know, at the heart of the story. Pilot Abilene's character and the Tavener twins, this friendly fire incident in Iraq being the sort of catalyst for the heartbeat of the movie. So that phrase, it kind of, to me, it was a comedic line, but then it started to get this deeper meaning for me in the sense of not only veteran suicides, but also America being this this nation, pimp nation that was self-destructing by invading Iraq, and that our nation was maybe committing suicide. So there's a lot of really deep, heavier meaning behind it, and I guess more than just a joke. But that's the whole film obviously has a lot of serious things going on, but it's meant to be this you know, angry outburst of emotion and satire.
Yeah, one of the things that strikes me every time I see the film is the way that it goes from being this sort of macro satire of just about everything going on in the country to being a very personal story about the Tavener twins, especially when Justin Timberlake says "my best friend," and it really goes down to a personal level. And one of the things I like is that you really give each character, you know, sort of a really personal moment, and one that, in the midst of all this chaos and all this satire, you know, I think really resonates. But I don't think Roland Tavener is and Dwayne Johnson in the film, Boxer Santeros, are the only doubles in the film. That there's a whole lot of doubling and mirroring in the film. I wanted to ask you about some of those things.
Yeah, well, there is the kind of concept of doppelgangers and dual identities is something that was organically tied into the narrative because of the big twist being that the Tavener twins are actually the same person, and Boxer with his dual identity and Krista with her dual identity, and it just became this organic thing to the film, this idea of twinning and mirror imagery, and again, these things just, they develop, and a lot of times the actors would bring a lot of ideas to the table. Like every one of the actors who was cast in this movie, they all brought something to their character, you know, whether it's Miranda Richardson wanting to eat the carrots, or Sarah wanting to make sure that Krista had a different outfit in every scene. That Krista would always change her outfit. Sean wanted to get shot through the eye, I think because he felt there was a reference to somehow to Frank the Bunny and Donnie Darko, and there's rabbits in the movie that you'll see, and so there's a lot of personal things that everyone brought to it. I think John Lovitz wanted to dye his hair blonde, you know.
Oh, wow.
No, I think maybe I suggested it. He's like, oh, he was really nervous about dyeing his hair blonde, but I think everyone wanted to just do something slightly radical or skewed, and it was just a real. We really went for it. We sure did. But look at where we are now.
Well, I'm glad you did.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yes. pair that I want to ask you about is there's sort of a mirroring between Nana Mae Frost and Starla, and there's a mirroring. I mean, they're literally there in the same department. They're wearing very similar makeup. Nana Mae eats carrots, Starla eats Cheetos, and I was just sort of wondering what was going on with that doubling. And I think I have sort of a larger confusion over the Starla character in general.
Yeah, I mean, Starla is reading Boxer's screenplay, and she kind of becomes Dr. Muriel Frost, the astrophysicist, or whatever her designation is. I don't know if it was ever. The idea of Boxer's screenplay being this this document that's been spreading through the neo-Marxist underground, and it's been scanned, and people are sort of reading into it as being this prophetic document, and she somehow has a psychic link or a snap or a vision of what's going to happen. Her trying to kill him, he's this sort of decoy that's meant to lure everyone away from the taverners being the true instrument of the apocalypse, I guess.
One of those things, how many of you are so obsessed that you've read the prequel trilogy comic books? Don't clap. Yes, absolutely.
I spent so much time on those books, and then we had no real distribution. And a guy named Bob Chapman, who works with Kevin Smith, was very generous to basically fund the books. I think Kevin Smith might have paid for those books, to be honest.
There's a lot of really good background information in those books. One of the things that's a little surprising reading those books, if you've watched the movie and then you read the books, is that the power seems to have been mostly written by Krista.
Yeah.
And written in sort of a, please let me know if I'm getting this wrong, sort of a mushroom-induced haze after reading the Book of Revelations. Is that right?
I believe you might be correct. It's so insane. But yes, Krista actually really does have a psychic ability, and there is a whole backstory of her being sort of on a plane traveling back towards LA, where they passed through or went near the rift in time, and she had some sort of psychic epiphany. And there's a whole big backstory to all the characters in the graphic novels. But the graphic novels began with Boxer actually waking up in the desert in his journey back. And you can see, obviously, some of Brett Welldilly's art within the opening prologue and a little bit sprinkled throughout the film. And that was something that I realized, particularly after our Cannes Film Festival debut, that the narrative was quite reliant upon these 3 prequel novels that I did. And at that point, no one was talking about transmedia, and people were just like, Richard, why would you write all this essential information that's part of a prequel? It's not part of the film. No one's gonna understand it. It's gonna be confusing, and it's too much. And I was, for whatever reason, stubbornly adamant to do these graphic novels because there was just so much more story. And so it was just a lesson in an overwhelmingly ambitious story that was bursting at the seams.
Well, and that was true of Donnie Darko too, where you had the website, which was really one of the most well-constructed, sort of in-depth websites. At the time, I had never seen anything quite like it.
Yeah. I always, these stories, they just get bigger and they get bigger, and part of the challenge is to keep the running time at a level of when people go to the theaters. It's rare to have a movie that runs over 2 hours unless it's a real big action spectacle or it's something from a director who can get away with that. And it's tricky because now television has sort of transformed the long form medium, and we have breathing room in television, but in feature films it's hard to tell longer stories like this.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you about is, and this is true in all 3 of your films, is that you often take time for really lyrical and beautiful moments. That you have this wonderful dance scene telling sort of the story of the film. It's a very Godarian moment.
Yeah.
There you have Pilot Abeline's hallucination and dance scene, and you have all of these wonderful personal moments. in the editing room and after production and realizing, wait, I've got way too much story for any sort of normal film, how do you determine sort of how to establish the balance between clarity and lyricism? Because there seems to be sort of a tug of war between the two in your work.
Yeah, for me, the lyricism is why I want to do this for a living, why I want to continue doing it. And it's the music, it's those moments of music and image and camera movement, and that's what I live for. And I struggle to hold on to as many lyrical moments like that as possible, because they obviously make the movie longer. And when we're just following people walking through a Mega Zeppelin for 3 to 4 minutes, I don't know, like no one's talking, there's no story being advanced other than characters moving and encountering, but I mean, I remember it was going back to Donnie Darko, the Steadicam sequence we did to Tears for Fears in the hallway. I remember there being conversations of like, well, people saying, just cut that, you don't need that. There's just music and people moving through space. But to me, I don't know, that's to me are the most cinematic moments that I want to hold on to. So it's just a balance, I guess, and sticking to your guns and not cutting those scenes.
Yeah. No, I'm glad for it, because those are some of my favorite moments. Actually, my favorite moment is when Wallace Shawn has shown the video of the trucks porking, and points it out, and then he goes back and he points it out again.
He's so proud.
He's so proud. It's so wonderful. I want to ask you about that, which is Wallace Shawn is so perfect in the film, and so many of these people are so perfect in the film. And I want to ask you a little bit about casting. Is there anybody that you weren't able to get for the film that you wrote for?
There are a few trivia things that will really amuse you. Before we got John Larroquette, I went and met with Artie Lang from the Howard Stern show to play. No, I'm sorry, not John Larroquette. We first, for Fortunio Balducci, played by Will Sasso, who was amazing. We love Will Sasso. I first went and met with Artie Lang to play the Will Sasso role, but he couldn't get out of his contract with Howard Stern to do the movie. The John Larroquette role, at first I was courting Rick Moranis to come out of retirement to play. And he was just very sweet. We had a long phone conversation. He's like, I just can't, I'm not an actor anymore. I don't act anymore, I'm sorry. And he didn't want to come out of retirement. And I guess finally the one almost casting suggestion, originally Christopher Lambert, my casting director, Mary Vernew, she's worked with Oliver Stone for many years. And I used to intern for Oliver Stone when I was 19 years old at USC Film School. And we approached Oliver about playing the ice cream truck driver. And he was really tempted, and ultimately I think he was just scared to do it, and so we got Christopher Lambert.
So I have a question about Christopher Lambert, and this is something that I didn't really think about, but there's a little tiny moment, I didn't see it until I watched the credits really seriously. And that is, I didn't realize that Amy Poehler and Christopher Lambert's characters were either brother and sister or ex-lovers, and I still can't tell which.
As I recall, he is her father. I think. They have the same last name.
Yes.
Veronica Mung and Walter
Yes.
Mung, I believe.
Right.
I think the insinuation was that maybe he was her dad.
Okay. Because he chuckles when he hears that she's dead.
Right, like they hate each other.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like he's just a real, like,
I had sort of built that up, that Dion like stole
maybe
her from him.
I don't think it's ever canon.
I can't tell you that.
I don't know if it's a father-daughter or an ex-wife they're still married or something. Maybe it does. I can't remember. There was a relationship that I was trying to insinuate, so maybe it does make sense that they were married at some point, and he is chuckling at her untimely demise.
We will
I guess
make
it
you.
is his daughter that makes him really cold.
We'll let you make the call
Yeah.
on that. Similarly, Sarah Michelle Gellar appears during the dance scene. She's a brunette.
Yes.
What is going on there?
Sarah wanted to be brunette at the end. She thought it was a cool reveal, and she was very particular about the wigs and wanting Krista to be a shapeshifter, for her hair to be different in every scene, for her outfit to have an outfit change in every scene, because that's the kind of, she's that kind of person who's always on. You know, she has her reality cameras following her at all times. So that came from Sarah. That was, like, again, another personal thing that an actor brought to it, which was nice.
Great. And one last bit of casting clarity. John Lyric had Von Smallhouse. Was he Boxer Santero's agent?
The idea is he was sort of like this consigliere, kind of a big Hollywood manager, yes, an agent or a manager who has sort of become the sort of conservative liaison between the Republican Party and Hollywood and getting California to go become a red state. So yes, in the graphic novels, he is Boxer's former either agent or manager, I believe.
Gotcha. So one character in the film, not shown, often heard, is Moby, and Moby's music is very, pivotal to the film, and I think it's really beautiful, and I really think it helps drive the film. Tell me a little bit about the process of working with Moby.
It was extraordinary. I approached him very early in the process because I knew that his music was going to be the heartbeat of the movie, and it was going to run counter to the vulgarity of the movie, the sort of the anger and the vulgarity and the satire and the pop kaleidoscope of the movie needed this counterpoint, which was Moby's melancholy, ethereal music, which was very emotional and very soothing and very operatic. And he started recording tracks even before we were starting to shoot. We were in prep for the movie, and he handed me like 12 tracks that he had put together. So we had the score mostly finished before we even started shooting the film. So I actually had the score to play for the actors and stuff, and it was already in place. So he was involved I always do that with the composers. I bring them on really early in the process.
One of the things that's distinctive about the music and something that you just said there, which is that it provides a counterpoint with sort of the vulgarity of the movie, is that even though Philip K. Dick is a big talking point for the movie and a lot of the paranoia and drug use and sort of the crazed milieu, you wrote a script that was an adaptation of Kurt Vonnegut's Ice Nine. Of Kurt Vonnegut's Cat Cradle.
Cat Cradle. Yeah, many years ago. It was actually Leonardo DiCaprio's father and a man named Hilly Elkins, who was Vonnegut's agent. They hired me many, many years ago. And I did a really radical adaptation of Cat's Cradle, and I called it Ice Nine because I altered so much from the book that I didn't feel comfortable. And ultimately it was such maybe a bit too much of a departure from the book, but it's interesting now, Noah Crawley, who created Fargo for FX, he's now developing that project at FX as like an event series, I think. So, yeah, Vonnegut and Philip K. Dick and I guess Pension as well were big influences on Southland Tales in terms of big Southern California sci-fi drug tapestries.
Right. And what strikes me about the Vonnegut link is just Vonnegut's own use of the melancholy and serious topics, while at the same time a very sort of slapstick, sometimes juvenile, sometimes avuncular, kind of humor that's mixed in there. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of juvenile stuff in this movie. I mean, I feel like when we were making it, we were just tapping into our inner 14-year-old in a lot of ways. It was just that movie where we were just very angry. This movie was shot in 2005. Late summer of 2005, and I remember Bush had just been reelected, and we shot the movie in 29 days, and I was just so deeply immersed in directing this film that I had no knowledge of what was really going on in the news. And we were in Venice Beach, and I saw Dwayne was sort of glum and feeling down, and I'm like, hey man, what's wrong? He's like, Rich, you haven't heard? And I'm like, no, what's going on? He's like, New Orleans has been destroyed. New Orleans is underwater, and people are,
it's horrible. And everyone was just talking about it. And I'm like, wait, it had been like 24 hours and I didn't even know Katrina was happening. And it was sort of catching up because I was just so detached from, I was focused on getting all of our setups and managing this narrative. So it was a lot to be angry about. And I think we were sort of putting our anger into this movie and really just not holding back. We were not holding back in making this at all. And I think that anger was returned to us in the initial response to the movie at Cannes. People were angry back at us. So it was a lot of anger, and I wonder, are we now angrier?
I think we may be.
But we're also better, and we have constitutional rights for same-sex marriage, and we have all these advancements and all these wonderful things that have happened. So I like to think our society, while it's maybe gone a little haywire, and it's maybe, we've got a lot of things that have gotten worse, but there's a lot of things that have gotten better as well. And so it's interesting to see this through the prism now of 2016.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm going to ask just a couple more questions, but in the meantime, we're going to have two of our staff on both sides of the stage. If anybody wants to come up and ask a few questions, we'd love to take a few questions from you. While they line up, I wanted to ask you a little bit about religion and its role in your films, and it's very much present in all three films, or at least a sense of the metaphysical. Certainly a sense of metaphysical constructs, but also the way that those metaphysical constructs sort of link in with organized religion as a whole. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit as to your own experience of religion and how you might have been raised, how that informs your films, and sort of where that comes from.
Well, I mean, I guess religion's obviously an undercurrent. There's a lot of spirituality in the films, but I was raised. My mother was Methodist, and she was from Texas. The opening of the film is shot at my aunt's house in Abilene, Texas. And my father worked for NASA as a scientist and is generally not particularly religious at all. And I think I maybe see myself as being agnostic, but I can't deny that I was brought up in a Christian, somewhat of a Christian environment, and went to church for a certain part of my childhood. So yeah, you can't, that's always going to be part of you. Even if you turn your back on religion, it still usually existed somewhere in your childhood, so I kind of try to acknowledge it and use science and science fiction to try to interpret religious ideas, I guess.
Yeah. All right. And I think that, I speak for all of us, it's been a long time since the box, and we all want to see something more.
I'm working away, I promise. I have a lot of projects in development. They are all very ambitious, and if I could, I've had a lot of false starts and a lot of almost blinking green lights that turn yellow, and so hopefully we're really close to finally having something really special. And I want it to be worth the wait. I want to come back with a bang, not a whimper, and it takes time. And I promise that I'm diligently working on many, many, many things, and have been for many, many years. And I also, I want it to be something really special, and I want it to be a hit. I'd love to have one of those at some point.
All right, well, these people can help, and I can tell you we all can't help. So thank you. Into them. So please hold it right up. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly, just the other week, before I found out about this, I watched the Cannes cut, and I enjoyed it immensely. I hadn't seen it before. This is about the 8th or 9th time, I can't quite figure out which. I've seen this film tonight, but I really enjoyed the Cannes film, and I'm wondering why we didn't watch it this evening. Do you not want to show it, or is it hidden away?
The Cannes cut it's owned by Universal International. I love the Cannes cut, but it's still neither cut is finished. I still see this entire endeavor as being an unfinished, unrealized endeavor in a lot of respects. I still am holding out, maybe hopeful or hopelessly, to eventually do a final finished version of the movie if they ever allow me to do that. But there's a lot of stuff in the can cut that I would love to include back in the movie. I think it makes for a more coherent, bigger picture. There's also just in the can cut, there's a lot of stuff that wasn't finished yet that was missing. So it's sort of like this work in progress version of the movie that I definitely, if there's ever another incarnation of this whole enterprise, that yes, the can cut is sort of like this thing that I would love to have available just almost as a work in progress study in a filmmaker's hubris or a filmmaker's going to a festival with an unfinished film, or just not having time or money to finish it, or the resources to finish it. It's a struggle. And but yes, so one day I think the can cut will probably officially make it onto a Blu-ray of some sort. But I think initially I just wanted to hold back because I just wanted to be able to finish the whole thing.
That'd be amazing. I hope you have the time to, finish the project up to your standards, because
thank you.
cuts are brilliant.
Oh, thank you so
I think
much.
we all want to see that. Also, I'm partially to blame for that, because I think that a very nice print of Southland Tales in 35 of the American release version, and I think that might be better than showing you like a bootleg that you downloaded over BitTorrent. So I think hopefully you guys enjoyed that. We're going to move over to this side in the red jacket.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your creative process and like how you actually sit down to start a project and just what the experience is like for you.
My creative process has evolved a lot in the many years that I've been writing for a long time, the past, 7 years now. I've been writing a lot, and I've been trying to advance my writing process to a higher level. It's as you grow older and you become more mature and more enlightened. We all hope to become more enlightened, that you advance your creative process as you advance through life, and you hopefully become more efficient and more thoughtful, and hopefully are able to craft characters that are complex and believable, and they all have different voices. And so it's just a learning process. I kind of had to, this film took so much out of me, I almost had to like reboot my brain. I had to take a break and just reboot and figure out how to ignite that flame of inspiration again. So, but it's burning pretty bright now. So.
All right, thank you. We're going to go over to the woman in the blue dress.
Hi. So hello. I know you've mentioned your love of David Lynch's Mulholland Drive before,
Yes.
and I wanted to know about the casting choice of Rebecca Del Rios to sing God Bless America.
Yeah.
And the process behind that, was it a deliberate choice based on her singing Mulholland Drive and just?
Absolutely. I mean, Mulholland Drive is to me, it's my favorite movie of all time, I think. I think it's probably the greatest movie ever made. And I could not help myself as just a fan of Lynch in that movie to approach Rebecca to do something just straight up bow down homage to, yes. But I also had Star Spangled Banner, and we wanted to do half of it in Spanish. And boy, does she have a knockout voice. So there was no one better to do it than her, and to be able to make a tribute to Mulholland, of course, it was definitely that, and she was wonderful to work with.
All right, thank you. We're going to go over to the man in the leather jacket.
Hi.
Hello.
I just wanted to ask specifically about the sort of role-playing element to the movie, the dungeon master character, the game that Trier, the Baron, launches on the beach where the public have to find the balls, which are conductors, which are kind of like mini Wi-Fi pods for the fluid karma. And throughout the film, we see these balls crop up, and Boxer finds one on the beach at the beginning of the film. He's holding one. There's one in the scene on the stairs with the character, I forget her name, the dwarf.
Yeah.
Yes, and where Muse is playing. And another at the end when he's approaching the room where they have the great reveal, and he picks one up when he's holding his gun, his sidearm. It seemed kind of like that was a subtext of the film, or a theme to the film that had kind of been lost in the transition from the Cannes cut to this cut.
Yeah.
Or that was perhaps planned as part of the multimedia aspect, but then shied away from. And I was wondering if there was more to it than what we've kind of seen.
Yeah, there's a whole Dungeons and Dragons thing that's tied into. There's also a whole subplot with Janine Garofalo, who I regret having to cut her scenes, where she and Kevin Smith's character have this whole role-playing game where they speak in Dungeons and Dragons terms, and you can see Dungeons and Dragons stuff in Mega Zeppelin. It was this elaborate game, the Serpentine Dream Theory thing, and the idea of the primer being the handshake, and them trying to figure out what this primer was. And it all ties into the title generator. I mean, it's some wild, crazy stuff. But yeah, and the balls were definitely part of the energy field, and they were antennas, and the color of the balls were specially noted to the 5 colors of the syringe that Justin Timberlake talks about. Green, you dream, yellow. The order of the ball color you see in the film is that exact order. And that color order is the 5 terrorist threat level colors as well. So it all ties together. I mean, there's so many layers to all of it, and it was all deliberately planned out. But yeah, there's just stuff that got lost. Like after Cannes, it was a mandate from the studio I had to cut the movie down because it was just such a disastrous response at the festival. So sadly, Janine's role was sort of like it got sacrificed, and it's unfortunate because I think there's a lot of stuff there, and makes it more coherent ultimately.
If you look real closely, though, you can see her for like a half second in the bottom of the frame.
Yeah.
So next time you watch it, if you didn't catch her, watch for her there. We are going to go over to the Horrors 11 woman.
I saw on the credit that you did that co-wrote that wonderful song, Teenage Horniness is Not a Crime.
Oh my God, yes.
Wondering how long that took to coin that masterpiece, and also with the prequel comics, is there any chance those could be turned into movies or web series?
Yeah, thank you for noting my first and last songwriting credit ever. Yeah, it's completely ridiculous. That song was sort of just penned. We wanted Krista to be a real multimedia, ambitious. She had to have the energy drink, the pop song, the reality show. She had to have it all. So I felt like we needed to have a song. And Sarah was not happy about having to sing. She was like, she's like, Richard, I don't know how to sing. I don't have a good singing voice. I'm like, that's fine. She's trying. She believes, Krista believes she has a good singing voice. So getting her to record that, she was just like, it was really difficult for her to, but she did it. She just didn't want to be doing something that she knows she can't do. You know what I mean? Which I admire and appreciate her doing that for me. As far as the prequel saga, yeah, I mean, one day I would love to, if there is enough interest to realize the prequel, the first 3 chapters, you know, there was always some kind of plan in my mind to do it as an animated live action hybrid, and that it would be mostly animated, but then the flashbacks to the Power screenplay that Boxer's imagining could be realized with live action, because it's a future world and everyone looks older in the Power. So that could be, you know, who knows if that will ever happen, but I guess time will tell.
In some internet sources, it says that this was supposed to be a Star Wars-like 9-chapter story. Is that right?
You know, maybe. You know, again, this thing is just, it's so, it's such a huge, ambitious endeavor, and I think it was definitely, it all ties together with all of my work. I think all of my work is interconnected. All my films have a tangent universe thing going on where there's a metaphysical logic going on, and so I don't know. I see all the films as being kind of sequels to each other or being sort of companions to each other. So, I mean, who knows? I think there's just there's a lot there. There's a big adventure there, and there's a lot of ideas, and you know, well, who knows what could happen. I'm just so grateful that everyone's sitting here 10 years later and actually still wanting to take a look at this crazy thing that we did.
All right, which we love, by the way. The man in the blue shirt. Oh, sorry, the gray shirt.
Hey, yeah. I want to say hi, and I want to know the significance of the blood on Pilot Abilene's shirt, and I just want to also personally thank you for making an exceedingly brilliant film. It's absurd to me that anyone ever booed it. It's absurd. It's like a really beautiful film. I love it very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Justin's shirt in the arcade, we had everything ready. We were getting ready to shoot that sequence under a lot of pressure with very little time, and he just had a white t-shirt on. And I'm like, this isn't gonna cut it. We need to do something. And so I looked over at my makeup guy, Lou Lazara, and he's like, I got a bunch of fake blood. I'm like, bring it over. So I took a brush and dipped it in this big bucket of fake blood, and I just started painting Justin's shirt with it at the last minute. It was a last minute decision I made, and I just slathered him with fake blood. And all right, that pops. And so it was a last minute decision that I made.
It sort of looks like the Darko rabbit.
Yeah, it strangely enough, it looks like a rabbit. You know, I guess these things maybe come from the unconscious a little bit. Yeah.
All right, thank you. The woman in the flowered outfit.
So this is the first time I've seen it ever, so it's wonderful and I love it, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you.
I just wanted to ask you about race and race in the movie. Because, Los Angeles is a place that is highly racially diverse. You have a very prominent actor of color as sort of the main protagonist. And there's the use of the N-word in the pickup truck, right?
Yeah.
And, there's a choice to have the Star Spangled Banner, half Spanish. But, at another level, it seems like you've really sort of whitewashed LA to a certain degree. Especially that beautiful, beautiful scene in the arcade, right? That's sort of whiteness on display. That is America is whiteness. And I sort of know, are you making a conscious decision to do that? Is there, what are your thoughts about that? How would you, in the future, what direction might you go in terms of sort of casting?
Yeah, I mean, it's been 10 years. I mean, I look back at this film and I think, I definitely think more about diversity, and I think there is a very intense racial component to the story that I think ties back to Rodney King and the LA riots, and I think of Catherine Bigelow's film Strange Days, which was sort of tied into a racial shooting that was captured on tape. And there's definitely, having just watched that brilliant O.J. Simpson documentary, which just paints a really devastating history of California and the sort of racial divide and this racial chasm, that has existed for many times. So, absolutely. I mean, we live in a quite different world now than we did in 2005 and 2006, ultimately 2007 when it was released in theaters. But yeah, I think I would absolutely, moving forward, would always be very, very, very conscientious to cast a wide array of colors in all kinds of performers. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go over to the man in the black jacket.
Yes, hi. So I have a sort of a question about your creative process. And I think for me, maybe I speak for more people, about when we look at directors, storytellers, and we kind of have that idea of the visionary. Certainly the work that you've done, I look to you as a visionary filmmaker, a visionary storyteller.
Thank you.
But what I would like to know is if there are certain people that are close to you which have a real influence on you in terms of inspiring and developing the ideas that you have.
I think I take most of my inspiration for writing stories and building these worlds from a lot of it is the socio-political landscape that I see unfolding. I watch a lot of news. I am constantly monitoring the news, and I watch way too much CNN and 24-hour news cycle stuff, and I'm obviously attached to my smartphone way too much, and I'm reading Twitter way too much, but I just want to know everything that's going on in the world. I want to have access to all the information. And I also just observe people. I go to coffee shops, I go to restaurants, and I just listen, and I observe, and I watch people, and I try to just understand what people are saying in the world. And Los Angeles is a great place to eavesdrop upon a lot of ridiculous conversations and a lot of ridiculous people, but again, those are the most interesting characters to me, are the really ridiculous ones. So I guess expect more ridiculousness to come.
All right, everybody, please thank Richard Kelly for coming out tonight and for Southland.
Thanks.